Shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Follow the leader when the leader. Oh my God. Follow the leader. 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 Follow the leader.
Happy Friday. You are listening to the Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm your host, Adrianne Shropshire. So we are 25 days out from Election Day. And yes, you heard me right. 25 days away from the end of the 2024 election. November 5th, as I continue to say, is your last day to vote. And as a reminder, people are already voting all over this country. They're either voting by mail, they're voting early in person, and more early voting dates in battleground states will begin to come online over the next few days. So there are people voting right now all over the country. More people will start voting in the next few days, all the way up until November 5th, Election Day. So we are in it. This is, if you think about Election Day as a single event, or you think about the election as a single event that happens on a single day, that is no longer the case. We are in the middle of voting. Nearly 35 million people have requested to vote early and by mail. 35 million Americans requested to vote early and by mail. Nearly half of those requests came from Democrats. More than half are from voters over 50. And more than 50% of those requests come from women. This is according to the folks at Target Smart. So when you think about who is trying to vote early, those who decided to request ballots or options for voting early, mostly Democrats, mostly people over 50, and mostly women. Are the folks who right now are trying to vote early. So already we've had more than 4 million Americans cast their ballots in states from Maine to New Mexico. So again, we are in it. 4 million Americans have already voted. And so who is turning out to vote in the early voting period, and particularly in the battleground states? I'm going to give an example for you all really quickly. That is Pennsylvania. So the Democratic early vote gap this year is wider than it was in 2020. What does that mean? It means that more Democrats or Democratic-leaning voters have already voted early at this point than they did in 2020. So more Democratic or Democratic-leaning voters have already shown up and voted, however that was, by mail and early vote, than they did at this point in 2020. And those voters are far more likely to be voters of color. So why am I focused on the early vote? Because while polling still matters, and we're seeing the polling come out, and every day the polling gets more skewed in some ways because we're getting more, in my opinion, bad polls sort of going into the pool. But polling still matters, and it gives us, some sense of understanding where the race is nationally, where the race is in states. It's actually turnout that matters, and we all know this, right? So polling is great. Who shows up and votes is actually what matters at the end of the day. So the early vote, and particularly in battleground states, will give us a sense of trends that are happening among voters in those states and in the regions of the states. So we'll get a sense of who's showing up, how robust is the turnout, and that's what we're looking for right now. It is the reason why what candidates do and say right now matters so much more, because voters literally have ballots in their hands as candidates are saying things that they may agree with, right? Or they may be saying completely unhinged, crazy nonsense, as Trump did in Detroit yesterday. Andy, do we have a clip of that? Well, for those, Andy's trying to find the clip. For those of you And the reason why we started with our music today with Aretha Franklin in Respect is because Trump needs to put some respect on Detroit's name. So yesterday in a speech, he basically disparaged the city of Detroit, talked about what a terrible city it was. He said that all of America was going to end up like Detroit. And the response from him, or to him, from people in Detroit, from the mayor, from elected leaders in Detroit, to the Kamala Harris campaign, was pretty swift about, his disparaging of the city and frankly of the people who live in Detroit. And so what is the connection between people voting right now and candidates like Donald Trump making disparaging remarks about Detroit, about the city of Detroit and the people who live there? So what's important to know is that early vote in Michigan right now is up. Right. And for the Black early turnout vote is higher at this point. Black early vote turnout in Michigan is higher at this point than it was in 2020 or in 2022. So while he insults the city, voters are responding with actual votes. Right. And so, again, this is sort of the product of our elongated voting timeline. Right. You have Trump say crazy things, insult people, disparage whole communities, and people have ballots in their hands. And so we're seeing and looking at what the early vote trends are. And I think that while I wouldn't say that folks shouldn't pay attention to what's happening in the polls, although I always try and say don't pay too much attention because they are simply a reflection of what happened in that, when that poll was out in the field and things change rapidly. And also as we just get closer to Election Day, what's most important to pay attention to really is the actual turnout. So in other news on the campaign trail, I think folks saw President Obama hit the campaign trail for the Harris-Walz campaign in Pennsylvania yesterday. He was in rare form, both defending his record and the record of the Biden-Harris administration and clowning the Republican nominee. So the campaign is heating up, bringing in bigger surrogates to be out courting voters, and particularly base constituency voters. Obama had some conversations with Black men while he was in Pennsylvania campaigning for the Harris-Walz campaign. And so we'll begin to see more of that. But we also know that this week we saw more devastation resulting from our climate crisis as Hurricane Milton battered Florida less than 2 weeks after Hurricane Helene caused devastation across the Southeast. We'll talk with political strategist and organizer Donna Davis about what's happening in her hometown of Tampa when we come forward. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580. Tabitha Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today.
Girl, I have a secret. When I get stressed out, I get sweaty. That's why I use Secret Clinical Antiperspirant. It's like my own secret weapon. For 72 hours, I get Secret's strongest protection against sweat caused by stress, heat, and activity, because you know how crazy life can get. Plus, it's made with advanced odor fighters that don't just cover up smelliness. They help prevent it from happening in the first place. Believe me, if I weren't wearing Secret, I'd be a hot, smelly mess. Thankfully, Secret works.
It's been said that when someone you love has Parkinson's, you have Parkinson's.
The Parkinson's Foundation knows that the disease doesn't just affect the diagnosed. It affects everyone who supports and helps care for them.
If you have questions, the Parkinson's Foundation has answers.
we can help you understand the disease
and give you tips for living a better life.
Find your answers at parkinson.org or call 1-800-473-4636. The Parkinson's Foundation. Better lives together.
You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, where climate is king. Climate is king. KBLA Talk 1580 congratulates Tavis Smiley on receiving the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award from President Joseph R. Biden Jr. for a lifelong commitment to using his media and philanthropic platforms to help build a stronger nation. A host of Tavis's family, friends, colleagues, and luminaries, including LA Mayor Karen Bass, joined in the celebration. KBLA Talk 1580 wishes to thank the following partners for their support: the Weingart Foundation, Dr. Shikari Byerly, Rodrigo Byerly, and the team at Aviterus Public Opinion Research, Waters Tax Service, LA Councilmember Heather Hutt, the Empowerment Congress, Wallace and Renee Fortuné, the IQ Air Foundation, Dr. Kenneth Arduna, and Central Neighborhood Christian Health Clinics, LA County Supervisor Holly Mitchell, LA County Supervisor Janice Hahn, Ambassador Michael A. Lawson, Ambassador Charles R. Stiff, and Attorney John E. Sweeney. Congratulations, Tavis, on your Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
You don't talk to me like that. You don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
You are listening to the Black Pack on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Adrianne Shropshire, and over the past 2 weeks, we've seen the very real impact of climate change, with experts sharing that warmer ocean temperatures are driving even more powerful storms. And I think we all saw that on our television sets a couple of weeks ago, and then again just in the last really hours. So joining us to talk more about the latest from Tampa, Florida, is political strategist and community organizer Donna Davis. Donna, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I know that you're based in Tampa. I want to just first check in and see how you are doing and how your community is faring after dealing with these two devastating hurricanes.
Well, you know, my house fared shockingly well. My husband was there to put all of the things, you know, that could have been projectiles away. Mm-hmm. I am on the campaign trail. Okay. I left... Actually, the day that the storm hit, I actually left Philly to come to Minneapolis, which is where I am now. Mm. But the community, you can actually see the disparity, which we're going to get into later, in how the response has been and what the level of preparedness was headed into this storm. So there's been a lot of flooding, Adrianne, a lot of flooding. And a lot of insurers in Florida will not provide flood insurance to homeowners that are in a floodplain. And if you ever have collected money for damages due to flood waters, it's almost impossible to get insured the next go around. Yeah. Then FEMA becomes monumentally important, and how they're meeting out those funds are often not equitable.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because I think that there is often, and I think folks don't, totally understand when we see these huge, storms come through, particularly in the Southeast. I think folks don't often understand the disparity, right, and in how the crisis impacts various communities. Will you talk just a little bit more about that and how really oftentimes it's our communities that bear the brunt of that disinvestment?
Okay. So when we begin the conversation on race and politics, there's several knowns. I think the main ones are the disproportionate impact that climate change has on communities of color, and that colored folk have never been able to trust the systems and rely on the systems that their tax dollars fund. So FEMA, when you talk to FEMA about this, the folks at the head of FEMA and the Biden administration, which has put race relations, equity, and climate change at the center of its platform, FEMA says they're doing the work. They say they understand the disparities. They claim to not to they know that they exist. They claim not to understand its origin, right? But in my opinion, any government agency is only going to be as helpful to the society, to the least among us, as the society in which it's embedded functions. So, you see Black people being asked for more but given less.
Right.
These are our tax dollars too.
And that includes the investments in infrastructure, right? That might help to mitigate some of the damage that we might see in communities as well. Is that right? I mean, I feel like that's also yeah. Can you say a little bit about that?
So FEMA outlines disaster response and relief in 4 phases, and mitigation, of course, is the gateway. When we mitigate, then there's a lot less to litigate later on. However, the political will is not there for mitigation because politicians do not get votes from mitigation. They get votes from standing on a dais wearing a windbreaker or rain boots with the FEMA logo on it, with a bullhorn, telling people what they're going to do for them. So the political will shows up when there's recovery. You see now...
Not in the early investment.
Right. The vice president and the governor of Florida, fighting over who's politicizing the storm. Meanwhile, people are wading literally in the water. So mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery, the ounce of prevention is out the window here. People are going to get, there's been mayors elected to New York based on how they manage snowstorms.
Yes.
So that's where the political will is in the recovery, which doesn't help folks in Florida. And this thing is not going to turn around. This is just going to continue to get worse and worse.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the sort of on top of all of this, as there are challenges in getting resources to folks. We also have this additional layer of, folks certainly on the right who think that climate change isn't real and so won't really address the issue because they would rather not talk about it and sort of head in the sand. But now we have this new sort of additional layer of lies and disinformation being spread from to communities from high-profile individuals, including the former president who's running for president again, both about FEMA, about the recovery efforts, making claims about, the government controlling the weather. We have, DeSantis refusing to extend the voter registration deadline for folks who've been caught in these storms. How should people think about these kinds of responses and this kind of, really, irresponsible behavior when they are considering either at the federal level or the state level or the local level, the types of leadership that are required to sort of manage what we know is, these are not once in a century storms anymore, right? And so we can anticipate until we are able to make some progress, on climate, that these are going to be with us for a while. And so how should people think about this this layer of not even disinformation, really lies and propaganda that are now kind of distorting how people understand what's happening?
I think people respond to this differently now because they're in dire straits. But this lie, obfuscation, the fantastical stories about HARP and cloud seeding, all of those things are already in play before disaster strikes. They are in the incubator of this madness already. This is where we are. J.D. Vance making up stories about immigrants. We're already there.
Right.
When the disaster strikes, people land on folks differently because they have deep and immediate need. And so when you hear Trump rattling off some absurd story on any random Thursday, having a fit, calling Kamala Harris dumb, just really being out of pocket and unhinged. We laugh at that until you're standing chest deep in water in your living room.
Right.
And then you have a different conversation. So without disparaging American voters, I believe that the level of sophistication required to consume the political product that these pundits and elected officials are putting out for our perusal. Are inadequate in the least. And we would do well to pay attention to whom we're electing before we find ourselves chest deep in our living room.
Right, and some of them are telling us already who they are, but you make a really important point, and that is that the conditions for people to accept the misinformation existed long before these most recent storms came through, and that really is the shame in our political environment right now. And so I think yes, and that people are telling all the voters who they are and how they will behave in elected office when it comes to dealing with natural disasters and their impacts on communities. So we talked about the disparities, and we know that they're real. But last week on the show, we talked a little bit about the storms. About Helene and its impact in Georgia, and talked a little bit about the kinds of mutual aid efforts that have sort of popped up in community. And it is, I think there's no way that mutual aid efforts can actually absorb the full responsibility of what a government can and should do to provide support for its people, for its citizens in the aftermath of a disaster. But talk a little bit about how mutual aid can help to fill gaps for people who are struggling really to navigate the kind of post-disaster recovery period.
Okay, so for people who don't know about mutual aid, this is essentially community members helping each other in the wake of these disasters. I think that it has to become more of a thing, has to become more prominent in communities. In 2017, I traveled to Puerto Rico after setting up a totally free store and doing disaster relief and sending up boats to Jacksonville, where they were able to go down the street in a canoe because of flooding in West Jack. And we distributed probably several tons of food, 18-wheeler of water. Oftentimes, I apologize for the background.
No, of course.
Oftentimes, there's a period before the bureaucrats get on the ground and are able to begin to sort themselves out. In one such case, we saw what precipitated our trip to Puerto Rico was we saw a bridge that had broken in the mountains of Puerto Rico, and the folks had gotten some spray paint and made a sign that says Campos Los Olvidados, the camp of the forgotten. And they were not able to receive aid because of the broken bridge. And so they had set up a pulley system using a shopping cart, where they were pulling these things across for folks who would bring up food. Our group moved about 100 tons of food from the FEMA warehouse where it was sitting, minding its own business, into the mountains of Puerto Rico. We also noticed when we were there that there are Black people in Puerto Rico. There's an entire town called Luisa Aldea, and those communities were not receiving aid at the same quality or quantity of other parts of the island. Like no one was coming there, and we made a point of going to that space and distributing goods in those spaces. And you'll find that same thing reflected in Tampa right now. There was a situation where backup generators didn't get employed because they weren't ready. And homes actually flooded that were not in flood zones. Those stories are going to come out in coming days.
Right. And so is there, I think that it seems like the mutual aid efforts pop up, during as you said, right before the bureaucrats get on the ground, but they pop up when the crisis happens. How would we think about, or how might we think about these sort of sustained mutual aid programs, particularly because we know that this is not, this is with us?
Well, they are sustained, and they exist. Mutual Aid Disaster Relief is our Facebook page We have about 12,000 affiliates all over the country, not just in Tampa.
Will you repeat that for folks? What's the Facebook page?
Mutual Aid Disaster Relief. Okay. And you can reach out to these. We had people reaching out to us for Life Strong, for generators, water. We would raise funds from local folks in the community, small dollar donations, and try to meet those needs. We believe that people, when they're in need, are best able to determine what their needs are and prioritize their needs. And so when people call us and ask us for things, we don't tell them what they need. We listen to them, try to meet them there. What you'll find with the government is you have one family that's black and another family that's white. A tree falls on the house. This family gets $17,000. That was in the New York Times, actually. And the white family and the black family gets $7,000. And also, I'm all over the place. I'm trying to I have so many things to say, and I'm trying to streamline my commentary. But mutual aid and disaster relief done, mutual aid is something that can fill in the blanks for where the government and entitlement programs do not go, and will stay in the community and sustain people long after FEMA has packed up and gone. And that is why it's important.
And so, Donna, can people, if they wanted to make a contribution, can they do that at Mutual Aid Disaster Relief at the Facebook page?
Well, you can do two things. You can go to the page and say you would like to make a donation. You can make that donation. You can actually send a cash donation. You can also send goods. And you can also talk to them about wanting to come down to Florida and do work. And they would help you with supporter housing so that you can help them on the ground.
Okay, that's fantastic. Appreciate you so much, Donna, for coming on. Stay safe out on the campaign trail. And we're thinking of you and your community down in Tampa. On the other side, we're going to be talking to Deirdre Reese from the Ohio Organizing Collaborative about the work that they're doing organizing Black communities in Ohio. Stay with us.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Tyreek Wynn. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. Newly published research ranks Atlanta, Georgia as the best city for Black home buyers. The report was published by Columbia, a Mississippi-based mortgage research center. It found that the Atlanta, Sandy Springs, Alpharetta area is the most inclusive in the U.S. Former President Barack Obama is on the campaign trail for Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania. Obama spoke in Pittsburgh on Thursday, where he told the crowds America is ready to turn the page to a better story and elect Harris. He says she is prepared for the job as any other president has ever been. The West Suburban Oak Park Elementary School District is being sued after teachers sent several African-American students home with a bag of cotton following a lesson on slavery. One of the students was 13-year-old Autumn Shelton, who attends Percy Julian Middle School. She said that her history teacher had the class clean dirty cotton for the rest of the class period. That's the latest. I'm Tyreek Wynn on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Keeping you updated with the latest from downtown. Crash has been moved fully to the right shoulder of the 101 South before the 110 Pasadena Freeway. However, an over 45-minute delay continues to run heavy from Cahuenga Boulevard. Please be advised and drive with caution. This is probably also adding on to the delays as folks are heading to Dodger Stadium as the game is get ready to start at 5:08. In El Monte, the 10 West before Santa Anita Avenue, El Monte split in accidents on the right shoulder with heavy traffic that continues from Peck under 10 minutes. In Anaheim, watch for an accident involving two vehicles on the 5 North after Catella Avenue on the right shoulder with a backup running heavy over 35 minutes from Highway 133.
Every 3 seconds, there's a new victim of identity theft in the U.S. This Cybersecurity Awareness Month, get LifeLock for comprehensive identity theft protection. LifeLock alerts you to suspicious activity of your personal information. Start your 30-day free trial at lifelock.com/cybersafety.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A very important weekend for the USC and UCLA football programs. Both are at home Saturday and both are trying to get right. After losing at Minnesota last week, USC has a tough matchup with 4th-ranked Penn State. 12:30 kickoff at the Coliseum. UCLA plays Minnesota at the Rose Bowl at 6 o'clock. The Bruins have lost 4 straight under new coach Deshaun Foster. The Bruins are looking for their first win as a new member of the Big Ten Conference. The top HBCU game tomorrow, Alcorn State at Grambling. Florida A&M, the highest-ranked HBCU team in Division I AA at number 19, has a bye this weekend. The Rattlers are back in action next Saturday at Jackson State. Tomorrow night at 7 here on KBLA, join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough for Out of Bounds. 60 minutes of sports chatter with some flavor. You're welcome to join the conversation at 1-800-920-1580. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your black. Follow the leader. Oh my God. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Looking for a purposeful and passionate way to make a difference in your community? Volunteer with our Senior Medicare Patrol and help prevent Medicare fraud. S&P volunteers work in their community educating peers about healthcare fraud and how to prevent and detect it. Free training starts soon. Check us out online or at an S&P open house near you. We're on a mission to stop fraud. Join our team. You make a difference. Visit ca-smp-volunteer.org.
Don't miss St. Heron's El Dorado Ballroom at Walt Disney Concert Hall, October 10th, 12th, and 13th. This celebration of transcendent Black performance is curated by Solange Knowles and named in tribute to Houston's historic El Dorado Ballroom. This program features a night of classical and symphonic works by Black women composers, including Patrice Rushen and Solange Knowles, as well as nights dedicated to avant-garde expressions in jazz and soul, as well as gospel. Get your tickets today at laphil.com.
You have something special. You have greatness in you. Hello, this is Les Brown. I want you to go to lesbrownpowertour.com. On October the 11th, 12th, and 13th, this weekend, we will be at the Airport Marriott, teaching people the techniques and strategies on how you can begin to live your dream right now. Many people have the ability to do more, but unfortunately, they're trying to open new doors with old keys. We're going to teach you how to monetize your brilliance with one of the speakers. We have a lady who was once a gas station cashier, and she's now a billionaire, and she's going to share her knowledge. I'm going to share with you how to tell your story, how to present yourself, and how you can earn millions of dollars with your wisdom and your experiences. October the 11th, 12th, and 13th, this weekend. Go to lesbrownpowertour.com. It's going to change your life. Spread the word. Go to lesbrownpowertour.com this weekend in LA at the Marriott at the airport. This is your moment. You have something special. You have greatness in you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
I am Adrianne Shropshire. You're listening to the Black Pack here on KBLA Talk 1580. And joining our conversation now is Deidre Reese, the Integrated Voter Engagement Director at the Ohio Organizing Campaign, a longtime partner of Black Pack. So welcome to the show. Deidre, how are you?
I am well, thank you. Happy to be here.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the big Senate race you all have in Ohio and the ballot initiative that's around redistricting. But first, will you just let listeners know a little bit about the Ohio Organizing Campaign, the work that you all do, and what you're doing on the ground right now?
Absolutely. The Ohio Organizing Campaign, or OOC, as we like to be called, we really work to try to build power in the Black and Brown communities. We work across our urban counties, Cuyahoga County, which is Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, Dayton, Akron, Canton area, as well as Youngstown. And we are also moving into places like Toledo and Springfield and Athens. And we really certain that people can see their own agency so that they recognize that they can build power. They have power through the vote with elections, but also in engaging our elected officials at all levels so that they can see the policies that they need to have in place and be able to really impact and affect those policies and build relationships with the people who are making decisions across all of those levels of government, whether it's federal, state, or local. We want to make certain that people can empower themselves.
And that's, I mean, I think that's one of the important things that we talk about all the time is that I know that you all do, electoral organizing, you do voter mobilization, you make sure that folks turn out to the polls, that they have the information that they need to have. But you all also focus a lot on policy work. And I think that's the piece that you're talking about right now in terms of holding elected officials accountable, making sure that they are moving the kind of policy agenda that's important for the people of Ohio. And you named so many cities, right? And I think Ohio has been in the news, right, recently because of the attacks, right, on the Haitian community in particular. But we also know that there have been other attacks really on the voting process in Ohio. And we have talked a couple of times on this show actually about the Secretary of State, who's been doing the most, including purging, right? Including purging, I think 155,000 Ohioans off the rolls, and we're certainly seeing that happen around the country. But how is OOC really working to talk with voters to make sure they understand what's happening, to make sure that they're locked in on what's going to be necessary for Black and Brown communities to show up in this year's election?
Right. So we really wanted to turn the light on what our Secretary of State did, which was the purging, and actually is really close to 160,000 people, 988 to be exact, who were purged. And we are hearing that there were people who were on the list that really should not have been on the list. A lot of them get to, have some sort of list maintenance, but there are people who certainly have fallen through the cracks. So we wanted to make certain that everybody knew. So we've been out knocking on doors, making phone calls, having community events, making certain that people looked up their own voter registration to find out if everything was accurate and up to date. And then some of those people were folks who got purged, so we were able to get them back on the rolls. And, we were pretty excited that we were able to register more people than what he purged. But imagine how good then, that 160,000 plus the almost 60,000 that actually got purged. So we've just been very, very aggressive in making certain that we let people know and understand that, the vote is the key to the House. We really believe that, the House belongs to them, and not just, the House of Representatives, but the House of Politics, the House of Policy belongs to the people, and the vote is the very key that gets them in that. Because there are some policymakers that don't listen if they believe that you're not voting or that your representation is so small in their own districts, they feel that they don't have to listen to us. So we've been making certain that we let people understand that they could have been purged or that there's some information that might not be as accurate, and they could be by someone challenging their right to vote, because we see a lot of that going on too. It's coming from policymakers. It's also coming from people who don't want to see everybody vote, and very often that's people who look like me, people, brown people. So we just have been really getting the message out and tying it back to the policies that they are concerned about, and making.
And what are some of those? What are some of the issues that you're hearing from folks? Because I know that there's a range of issues, and everyone is got struggles in states across the country. But when you all are talking to folks about what the policy issues are or the concerns that they have for the communities in Ohio, what are the things that folks are saying? What is it that they want elected officials to be talking about? What do they want to hear from Senator Sherrod Brown, right? What do they want to hear from other candidates that are running about the issues that they think are most important to be addressed?
Right. So reproductive justice continues to be an important issue, even though passed a ballot initiative to protect that right. We still see some elected officials who have done everything they can to try to overturn that, and they continue to threaten to do that. So people want to see that protected, and Senator Brown has been a champion of reproductive rights, and we want him to continue to do that. The cost of child care has continued to be an issue. Able to access that so that they can go to work and work in jobs that will allow them to be able to, exist in the manner that they want to exist and have dignity in the work that they do and the jobs that they can actually attain. Having fair wages in the jobs that they work, having union protection, because we know when unions are there, everybody rises. When you have, a union contract that provides, a baseline of benefits, everybody, even if they're not in a union, that's something that's important. Healthcare costs, being able to have control with prescription drug costs. And it's not just, the seniors, and, thank goodness that particular thing changed. And we've got, some medications for seniors that is more affordable by capping. Other people want to see that happen too. And that's something that we actually do here on the ground. And then there's a lot of concern about, preserving the environment. Great concern about climate change. We're absolutely seeing it. And then, of course, of late, we've been hearing a lot around just the racial dynamics that are going on at the top of the ticket, and particularly the claims that were made against the Haitians in Springfield, and people having a very twisted view of our immigration policies and what's true and what's not true about that, and trying to cut through that. And people are just frustrated that all of this attention has come to Ohio in such a negative way, and having, quite frankly, another senator that, put that out there and has been unwilling to fix it. And we've got children who can't go to school, people can't go to work, and, all sorts of resources being expended to protect a community that has done nothing but what they should do.
It should not be under attack. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about this, about both the issues, what people are hearing, but also because it is the case, I think, that sometimes people lose track when they think about J.D. Vance, that he is y'all's senator. And he raised that crazy stuff, right, about his own constituents. So when we come forward, we're going to continue this conversation with Deirdre Reese from the Ohio Organizing Campaign, talk a little bit about what they're doing in the remaining 25 days to get folks turned out to vote in Ohio. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Have you heard of the 50-30-20 rule? This can help you spend and save your money wisely. So how does it work? Distribute your dollars into 3 buckets. 50% towards needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% goes to savings. Use this tool to help your journey to financial success. Sponsored by J.P. Morgan Chase & Company.
And that chill in the air means one thing. It's truck season!
Just 5 more minutes.
No snoozing. You've got so much to do. So do it all in a Chevy Colorado or Silverado, including the HD or class-leading 440-mile range of the Silverado EV.
Wait, what? Are you talking to me?
You, yes! Picture it. Work, play, hauling gear, off-roading. A Chevy truck can take whatever you can throw at it, including tailgating in an actual tailgate!
I mean, homecoming is just around the corner. Oh, and showing up in a new truck?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Get things done and look good doing it.
Okay, I'm up. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Without offering me a ride? That's cold.
It's Chevy truck season. Head to your local Chevy dealer and get 0% financing on all 2024 Silverado pickups when you finance with GM Financial. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
0% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $27.78 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 9.3%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available, at least in some of the offers. Take me retail delivery by 10/31/24.
We're not just a thermometer recording and broadcasting popular opinion.
We aim to be a thermostat,
transforming the conversation about climate justice in our community. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
From the first day of kindergarten through the day they graduate high school, in California,
38% of students attend a public school that fails to meet minimum health standards. That's why we need Prop 2. Voting yes on Prop 2 will fund urgent repairs at local schools, protect kids from toxic mold, asbestos, and lead, ensure clean drinking water, and repair leaky ceilings and storm damage. Yes on Prop 2. To fix what's actually broken. All funds go to local schools without raising taxes. You heard that right. So join the California NAACP, nurses and teachers, and vote yes on 2. Because all our kids deserve a safe place to learn. Ad paid for by Yes on Prop 2, sponsored by Nonprofit Education, Labor, and Business Associations. Ad committee's top funders, California Building Industry Association, Coalition for Adequate School Housing, California Teachers Association.
You don't talk to me like that. Don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
You are listening to the Black Pack, and we are continuing our conversation with Deirdre Reese with the Ohio Organizing Campaign. So, Deirdre, we the thing I said just before we went to break is that you all have a senator who has been, disparaging, attacking, even, right? Not even just disparaging, but attacking in racist ways his own constituents. And so how does that play out with the voters that you all are talking to? Because I think that there's also in some ways, we know that the Trump campaign has made a concerted effort, right, to try to throw, these kind of wedge issues, kind of turn communities against each other. And in particular, there is this effort to sort of turn, Black communities against Black immigrant communities. And so I wonder how that is playing out in this conversation around this particular attack on the Haitian community in Springfield, Ohio.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it has definitely backfired in terms of what their intent was, and it has shown to people more than ever that Senator Vance just has not been representing us in general, but to do what he's done, people are like, oh, he's our senator? Well, who is he? What has he done? And the only thing they can point to is the fact that he basically has, just thrown this horrible bomb into the middle of our state and caused all of this disruption and tried to paint us in a very bad light. And what we have seen is the Black community, the white community, the Hispanic community, the Asian community really around the Haitians in our state, and particularly those who are in Springfield, and just really stand up and say how terrible this is and how horrible this is and how disingenuous Senator Vance and former President Trump have been to even come up with these lies. And in the face of the truth, they continue to carry. And Senator Vance in particular, depending on what audience he's standing in front of, he'll act as if he's this nice, straight, upstanding guy, and then we'll turn around 15 minutes later and continue to say they're eating cats and dogs and all the other dog whistles. He does it a little bit more smooth.
Or he tried to be smooth. He tried to be smooth with his little debate.
Right. I mean, and it was just, really crazy to watch it. But what we hear in the state is that a lot of people are not buying it. And he is not popular in this state. He is not popular at all within this state. And we saw it even when he was elected. He would not have been elected had it not been for last-minute money from Peter Thiel, and just sort of sweeping in and saving the day with all of his just insane amounts of money. But you saw his performance versus others. He very much underperformed, Republican ticket in general in a state that he should have been winning by bigger margins. And I think that it is actually having an impact, even when I look at polling here in Ohio. Expects Trump to win Ohio, but the numbers are closer than anybody would have thought, based on the fact that it's not a top tier state, and I think that.
Well, let's talk about that, because I know that we've talked with many organizations from around the country that are doing similar work to the OOC, and they talk about sort of the shift, once Kamala Harris, became the nominee in the way that the sort of motivation and interest, right, being showed by the voters that they were talking to in their community. I'm wondering if that is true in Ohio and in the communities that you talked about in Cincinnati and Cleveland and Akron and Youngstown. Have you all seen, or what is the mood? I guess what is the mood right now in the state, particularly given that there's been all this focus for all the wrong reasons on the state. What is the mood of voters, and are people feeling better? Are they seeing this election as being important for them to participate in?
Yeah, I think we definitely see a lot of enthusiasm. Certainly, the way things happened wasn't necessarily, a happy, smooth feeling. But when she became the nominee, there was a lot of excitement. I would say I saw a level of excitement that was even higher than what it was for President Obama, which really surprised me.
Wow.
Like, wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Higher than that. But people were like, where can I get in? Put me in. What can I do? And we were getting called all corners of the state, people who were not already affiliated with us in one way, but they were like, we want to get involved. We want to do something, which is wonderful to see. And, other folks who are doing this type of work across the state have experienced the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it has given a level of excitement, definitely. And, if we were a top tier state, who knows, right? Just we're not
what it might mean.
Level. We're still seeing the movement. And people are working as if we are as crucial to the outcome as any other state is. And I think, again, that it's bearing itself out in terms of, the number of people who were out early voting day one.
Mm-hmm.
I went at lunchtime and the parking lot was packed, in Franklin County. Oh, my God, this is crazy. And I was all excited. But I think that there's a high level of enthusiasm and a high level of people not wanting to see us go backwards.
Right.
So all the
one of the things that we talked earlier in the show about actually was paying attention to the early vote turnout and what that might be telling us. So it's good to hear you say that you all are seeing turnout. Reflect, right, the excitement and enthusiasm that you're seeing on the doors. But you all actually are going to play a big role in whether or not Democrats hold the United States Senate. Is that kind of enthusiasm for the top of the ticket carrying over to Senator Brown's race? And then also you all have this really important ballot initiative on the ballot that will shift redistricting from being from districts being drawn by elected officials for all kinds of nefarious reasons to a citizens redistricting commission that would produce fairer districts. Is the enthusiasm that you all are seeing for the top of the ticket carrying over to Senator Brown's race, and then also for this ballot initiative that you all are trying to get passed?
Yeah, I think absolutely so. It really started out with the high priority being Senator Brown's race.
Mm-hmm.
Before that was what everybody was focused on. So I think it's probably pretty equal. But there's also a lot of attention being focused on the redistricting battle. We had a redistricting ballot initiative, actually 3 of them, back in 15 and 17 and 18, and we thought we had a solution. And even the architects of it basically said, "Oh, I don't understand what fair means. I don't understand what equal means."
Right.
So here we are, and then 7 times our Supreme Court ruled against it. So it's a pretty easy sell to people in terms of we want to actually give citizens a chance to do this because, no matter who held the pen, lines were drawn to favor protecting people's seats as opposed to making certain that, we had competitive races and the people were actually being able to choose their politicians as opposed to politicians choosing their voters. And what we've seen is, when we get out there with the message, people are very, very supportive. All of the polling has showed, 60%, or thereabouts, maybe a point less, maybe a point or two more every time polling has been done.
Mm-hmm.
But we had the Secretary of State as the chair of the ballot board, basically writing false ballot language. So, we're overcoming but people want to see it in the hands of citizens. And the way we wrote it, we think the language is absolutely right. And they've had their chance, and they've shown over and over again that they won't do the right thing. And particularly this crop of politicians who have the pen, they just will not do the right thing. And people are frustrated because policies haven't been brought forward that people are clamoring for. They just won't even deal with it, and they don't give a chance for the elected officials in the minority party a chance to even participate in the process. Mm-hmm. And we've got state Supreme Court races. We've got 3 state Supreme Court races that are up, and the decisions that they're making have been really atrocious as well. So, it's a full court press, and I think we're giving as much energy to all of those things as we possibly can. But redistricting is going to be critical. And I tell people all the time, people say Ohio was red. I take them back to, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? We're not red, we're just drunk. It's very much a purple state, how people identify themselves and how we actually vote for legislative and congressional districts. But it is so badly gerrymandered. We do not have that representation.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you raising the 3 state Supreme Court races, because I think that, one of the in the midst of a presidential election, it can be really hard to get people to focus on the down ballot races. You all have some congressional races as well that are competitive, that will also help to determine who controls the House of Representatives. And so I think that I know that you all are continuing to pay close attention, not just to the top of the ticket and the presidential race, and where I think you all could begin to close the gap. I mean, I agree with you on it's been red, but this is a moment, and we've also seen the way that people have turned out in for last year's ballot initiatives, whether it was the decriminalizing marijuana or expanding reproductive freedom. We saw Ohioans turn out in real ways. So I really want to wish you all the best of luck in the next 25 days and making sure that you're getting folks out. And I know that you all will, because we've seen what the OOC has been able to do in years past. So I want to say thank you and appreciate you for coming on and telling us a little bit about the work that you all are doing, and then keeping people focused as always on those down ballot races and the importance of these elections, which is really about being able to move the kind of policy agenda that we know is so important for our community. So Deidre Reese from the Ohio Organizing Campaign, thank you so much for joining us. When we come forward, we're going to turn our attention to the Supreme Court and the new session with one of our favorite guests, Madiba Denny, to talk about what's happening in the court this session. Stay with us. We have a lot to talk about on KBLA Talk 1580. This is the Black Pack.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Tyreek Wynn. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. Former President Barack Obama is on the campaign trail for Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania. Obama spoke in Pittsburgh on Thursday, where he told the crowds America is ready to turn the page to a better story and elect Harris. He says she is prepared for the job as any other president has ever been. The West Suburban Oak Park Elementary School District is being sued after teachers sent several African-American students home with a bag of cotton following a lesson on slavery. One of the students was 13-year-old Autumn Shelton, who attends Percy Julian Middle School. She said that her history teacher had the class clean dirty cotton for the rest of the class period.